Hey guys, hello. Just because I got more than 15 emails with a request, please do the Cochrane Gambit against the Petrov defense, I decided to fulfill your wishes and requests and to teach you this interesting gambit. I'm going to be a little bit contradictory in the beginning because I just have to say two things about this gambit. I know that most of you told me, hey, we very much like when in the beginning of your videos you say play that opening in blitz or bullet or plain tournament chess. What's the real truth about the Cochrane Gambit? I believe that you can play this opening in a real games. Even Magnus Carlsen played it, Nigel Short on regular basis, and many other GMs. But for example, you'll see throughout this lesson that I mainly chose the games of Grandmaster Šarūnas Šulskis from Lithuania, who has great experience with this gambit, and most of his games ended in a very small number of moves. But on the other hand, even though it's very practical, it's very difficult for facing, especially in speed time controls, speaking from Black's point of view, especially because I played Petrov defense a couple of times. I can tell, on the other hand, that I checked like most of the games, objectively the best games, those are correspondence games, and White simply got smashed in all of those games. It means that with the help of computers, with like lots of analysis, this variation is objectively not like fully sound. But on the other hand, we don't play against the engines. No one can, like remember all those analyses, or people can rarely do that. So feel free to use this opening even in tournament games. And one very big warning before I start playing out the variations: those who like to play positionally, those who don't like tactics, those who don't find themselves like as a creative chess players, who don't like to attack so much, who don't like chess adventures, don't go into this variation. Play anything else, but don't go with this Cochrane Gambit, because many times you'll have to, actually also those who like material so much, because many times you'll have to carry on attacking, being down a piece, only having 2 pawns. But there is a good thing about this opening, and the thing why I like it very much, because you sack 2 pawns, you sack piece and you get 2 pawns. And apart from those 2 pawns, you get one more thing. What is that? That's a bad king. So they have problems to put the king into safety, and they have 2 pawns. So basically, with a weak and exposed king, with 2 pawns for the piece, I believe this is a very nice practical opening, especially against those who like calm games, and usually Petrov players like that, right? So definitely my suggestion is try this out in tournament game. In blitz, rapid, bullet games, it's fantastic weapon. I only played one like blitz game, played like a couple of bullet games. It went well, but you usually play on dirty tricks when you play bullet chess. But when you play blitz, it's a little bit more objective. I won one game, I'm gonna show you. It was pretty decent game. But just like I said, they didn't have like as much experience as I used to have like in other variations and gambits. Let's get started. So after first few moves, e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, we have famous and hard to crack Petrov defense. You go knight takes e5, they go d6. And there we go, Cochrane Gambit with knight takes f7. Of course, you threaten the queen and the rook. King simply has to take it. And then you go with d4. And since there are like a bunch of moves for black in this position, I just have to start with something. I usually start, as the lesson goes. So in the beginning, we always start with the worst ones, and the more we go and the deeper we go, we actually go with better and better variations. The main line that I opted for in this video is bishop e7, where they want to make artificial castle with rook f8 or rook e8 and put the king into safety. Let me put it this way. If black manages to do that, better pack your stuff, go home, and don't ever play this gambit again. But just like I said, that's the best variation, and I just have to tell you what's like gonna be the main variation in this file. And let's get started with probably the worst move. Probably most of you wonder, why not knight takes e4? Like, he sacked a piece, grabbed two pawns, but why shouldn't I grab this pawn? It simply doesn't work, because you give check. King has nowhere to go. Just to remind most of you, if king goes to g8, queen d5, checkmate. So that's the thing. If they go with king e7, I mean, this king definitely cannot belong there, and you're just about to crush them, for example, with queen e2, which looks nice. And then you get the knight back because the king is on the e file and the knight as well, and you'll be eventually being up a pawn. And finally, if on g6 they actually go with g6, you just play queen d5 check, attack king and the knight. King goes to g7, you take on e4, and you're just much better. I'm just going to slow down a bit because some of you told me that my bullet skills are also kind of reflecting on these videos and the lessons that I do here, and that sometimes I'm just explaining a little bit faster. You can give me your feedback if you think the same, but I'm definitely going to slow down a bit. Apart from knight takes e4, which is obviously a very bad move, they can go with knight c6. Knight c6 is not a good move as well, because on knight c6 you should go with knight c3. So the point of knight c3 is, apart from being simple developing move, the defense pawn on e4, it mainly gives us and secures bishop c4 without a possibility for black to go with a d5 afterwards. There is one thing about this variation. They can never play bishop e6 with the knight on c6, and that's one of the I would say drawbacks of the knight c6 as a move, because on bishop e6 you will always have this fork d5 and win the piece. So after knight c3 they can play bishop e7. I found 18 games in a chess base played like this. After a check they can't play bishop e6 once again, because you will simply take and once again do the fork. So they just have to go with king f8 or king e8. In my opinion, it's a little bit better to put the king on e8. Maybe this rook might go on f8. But then you just go castle. And after bishop g4, for example, I found a few games like this, f3, bishop h5, and bishop e3. I'd like to discuss this position. So what do we have? We have two pawns, and they have terrible exposed king and the broken short castle. I believe apart from those two, like very important facts, we have one more important thing. It's a strong diagonal a2 g8 and control of this diagonal thanks to the bishop in c4. Just because of this, I analyzed some bishop f7 here, but looks like it's not enough to give them a good game, and white definitely looks better. By the way, don't forget about the assessments of position, and you know that I always tell you the assessment of the game at in the end of the variation, so you can easily cope with that and realize should you be going with something or not. Also, all those analyses are usually checked with the strongest engines, and you can just rely on these variations and play them in your tournament chess. Third pretty suspicious move, along with knight takes c4 and knight c6, is the move bishop g4. This is the only top level correspondence game that I found between two grandmasters in correspondence chess, played back to 2006, but I just have to tell you that bishop g4 is one absolutely useless move. The game was beautiful itself, but this is one of the rare games that in correspondence base, white managed to win. So after knight c3, d5, this guy played e5, knight e8, and bishop d3. g6 makes sense because he just wants to prevent what? He just wants to prevent f4 followed by f5. Usually, the pawn structure with d4, e4, and f4, so pawns being stretched from d4 to f4, is the essence of this gambit for white. But I'm going to explain you that a little bit later. Here, white desperately wants to break with f5, if possible. Although after castles, knight g7, that's not going to be possible. This guy wants to play either bishop f5 or knight f5. At the same time, f5 seems pretty impossible for white. But take a look at this beautiful plan by white. He played g4, limiting both of these pieces. That's why I told you, if you're not a guy who likes creativity in chess, who likes tactics, who likes aggression, who likes active games with a lot of like unclear variations, and simply you're not going to feel comfortable in these variations, then just go and play something boring against the Petrov defense. This is for those who like actions, who likes adventures, and who really like to sacrifice and kill this king on f7. So after queen d7, which looks very logical, play this very nice move knight e2. I very much like transposing this knight to f4 and killing bishop on e6. No, bishop is not the best blocking piece in chess, and maybe knight could come there, but here bishop has to stand on e6 in order to prevent f4 by f5. Because once we remove this bishop on e6, and we're about to do it, and we're doing it now, we're just gonna have f4 followed by f5. Beautiful position with lots of tactics, and after king g8, f5, knight d4, c3, this guy had to give up this knight, and he's not only giving up knight, he's actually going into the position where we have bishop pair, where we have pretty much safe king, where they have absolutely unsafe king. Game is open, and we can say we've got all preconditions to call this position being much better for us. This guy played rook f6, queen e5, installed this pawn on g5 to defend the rook on f6, played bishop f4, queen d2 to involve another rook on e1, put the king into safety, and played some b4 move. After c takes, a takes, nothing special, but he probably just wants to create some space for the light square bishop afterwards. d4, played rook e1, took by queen on c3, threatened lots of things. This guy went with the bishop d4, and after queen g3, queen d7, rook d6, queen f5, bishop h3, queen b5, did this beautiful bishop d7 as a final shot and won the game. Take a look at this game a couple of times. Feel free to analyze it. You won't find mistakes. Just like I said, this was correspondence game. One more important thing before we start working out on reasonably well variations by black. I checked the games in Cochrane Gambit until the computers show up. White most of these games won. The same thing happened in like 60s, 70s, 80s when this gambit was played. But when you actually check what's happening after the computers showed, things are completely different. Black, just like I previously told you, simply had killed like most of these games white players. So just because of that, I'm telling you, I don't know, don't use this in correspondence chess, but feel free to use it against humans. So let's go with other variations. Bishop e6 makes sense. It prevents bishop c4, knight is not on c6, and basically completes his development. Here I opted for two choices. Here I have to mention a big friend of mine, his grandmaster Bojan Vučković from Serbia, used to be 2650 GM. He's got a PhD in math, and that's why he retired a little bit from professional chess, but he used to play this Cochrane Gambit with fantastic results. So let me just show you one of his games against pretty good player. Played, I believe, 20 years ago. When played bishop d3 to defending this pawn on e4, and this guy played bishop g4. Instead, I analyzed g6. Makes sense, because I either want to put my king into safety on g7, or maybe I want to play bishop e7 or bishop g7. After castles, bishop g7, this is the thing I spoke previously about. Thanks to a safer position of your king, thanks to the pawns being stretched from d4 to f4, with a massive pawn structure, I believe that white has a very, very nice, I can't say better position, but has very nice compensation. When I say compensation, means we're down material, but in return for something. For what? For attack, for initiative. So after rook e8, f5, g takes, e takes, bishop d7, for example. This is why I told you, if you're positional players and players who don't like to play crazy stuff and adventures, don't go for it. g4. So in front of your king, you're just pushing these pawns like crazy, and you know what? If you play g5 followed by queen h5, you're going to be like so dominating here. So after like h6, prevented this bishop g5 idea. Knight c3, d5, plays h5, g5, sorry, and takes by bishop. With all these arrows, king goes on h1, queen goes on f3, rook from a to e1, transfer your knight via e2 to f4, and eventually attack d5 pawn or jump on e6 and g6. All those things should secure white a pretty serious initiative here. Although in the game I wanted to show you, Vučković played, actually his opponent went for bishop g4, after a bishop e6, and he played castles. After bishop e7, f4, we have almost pretty much the same approach, apart that the bishop here stands on e7 instead of previous game on g7. After g6, he kept solidifying his game. That's what I like about his treatment of this gambit, because he shows like great patience. He's down a piece, but he just keeps on developing himself. Doesn't care too much that he only has 2 pawns for the piece, and that this guy is about to solve the problems with the king's safety, because his massive pawn structure is about to decide a game. And look what happened. He played knight f3, played queen c2, threatened that pawn on g6. Very nice threat. You can play rook h6 because of f5, so he has to play queen e8, and now he played knight g5, chasing away this bishop, supporting the f5 ideas. This guy played bishop takes g5 and f takes g5. Surprisingly, white, even according to the engines, is completely winning after only 16 moves. Why? First of all, white threatens to play h3, so the knight is trapped. And secondly, you can always stick your rook here on f6, sacking an exchange, which means that you're going to be down a rook in that position, but basically position would be completely winning for you. Black would be almost moveless. So 16 moves and completely winning position by Vučković in this game. Very much like this one. So bishop e6, just go bishop d3, just go with the idea castle f4, c3, knight d2, and break with e5, f5, or depending on circumstances during the game. Then the next move could be c6. c6 is also a very nice move, because it also prevents bishop c4 almost forever. They can also cope with some d5 and break in the center, and it also makes sense. I opted for a game where one of my friends played knight c3. But look at this one. Actually, no, this is actually... Yeah, this is the only game that I played in this opening. Yeah, this is the blitz game I mentioned. 3 minutes plus 1 second, played in Title Tuesday against some national master. He played c6, I went for knight c3. But apart from knight c3, I want to show you classic plan that Vučković used in previous game with bishop d3, then short castles, can absolutely work here. Although here you can play c3 followed by f4, but since they played, like c6, you can go with the bishop g5, pinning this knight and the queen on d8. I like it. And basically, it gives you knight e2 to complete your development, c3 to solidify your center, and you're about to push f4. Yes, we're down a piece. But also, yes, they can hardly stop after we play f4, e5 break. So they have lots of difficulties. By the way, if you can hear my parrot who's singing in the background, I apologize for that. So after c6, knight c3, bishop e7, and I played bishop c4. In that game of mine, it was, just like I said, blitz game in 3 minutes, I realized that d5 would probably create pretty much big troubles for black, because I would play bishop e3 and I would keep the tension against the d5 pawn for the rest of the game. So that was my initial plan here with the bishop e3, and you know what? I can play castle e takes d5, I can play castle queen f3, I can play castle e5, f4, f5. So I have like lots of possibilities. I would say I also keep like a big number of hidden threats with this bishop and b3. So after he went with the bishop e6, I went e5, knight e8, and once again, very nice move. It usually appears when the structure turns out to be like this, so it's almost unbreakable and good pawn structure. Our knight on c3 looks pretty much inactive because it cannot go jump to d5, b5 or a4, and you just go knight e2. What is this knight on e2 looking for? Looking for this baby. So this is for the third time we see in this lecture that when the bishop stands on e6 as a blocking piece, we should kill it with this traditional maneuver and the knight journey, knight c3, knight e2, knight f4. Don't forget about that. So after rook f8, making an artificial castle, not this time, sweetheart. You won't be able to put your king on g8 because your bishop is hanging. So you have to defend it. Okay, that gives me additional tempi. c3, I said, you know what? I'm threatening very, tricky bishop c2 followed by queen h5. The guy went for king g8. Actually, wait a sec. This was another thing. I thought that on d5 I would play something like this, and then I analyzed this and made short castle with the idea of f4 and f5. I definitely think we're down a piece, but they can hardly stop bishop c2, f4, even g4, f5 idea. But just like I said, I wasn't afraid of d5 because of bishop b3. So I thought during the game I should go with castle, but just like you see, it's even better to go immediately with knight e2, knight f4. My opponent went for the king f8. Once again, I have to repeat that the weak and exposed king on f8, plus 2 pawns, and inability to castle, or to put the king into safety, makes this creation, playing against humans, like a very reasonable choice even for tournament games. So you play castles, d5, bishop e3, he captured, and I decided to go all in. Here I decided to play a little bit, I would say more in a blitz type of chess, but it turns out to be the best move. I played f3. You know that I like to sack pieces and played all these gambits. So I played queen f3, the guy captured on d4, and you know what? He's almost equal in terms of material. He played queen g4 looking desperately to trade the queens, and I can immediately resign and go home. But I played queen f2. The guy played knight bd7, and I played rook a to e1. Take a look at this position. Extremely difficult, because they can't move the knight to c5. I'm gonna take it. They can't move to e5. I mean, I'm just gonna move my bishop somewhere and they're dead on the e file. They can't move this knight. They can't put the king into safety. During the game, I just realized how Cochrane Gambit could be a great weapon in a blitz games and also to have fun with. Also, it's very difficult for players, especially those who like calm positions, and usually Petrov players like that. They can't find within a small amount of time, in the speed time controls so easily their defensive resources. So this guy played b6, I played h3, and set this queen on h5 and g6, and I just came up with this, once again, crucial idea, knight e2, knight f4, knight e6. In like 4 or 5 moves, I just won the game. So, just like you see against c6, you have two plans, traditional one and an old school Cochrane Gambit plan is bishop d3, c3, castle f4, knight e2, and kill them with e5 or f5. Or this one, the modern one that I went with, knight c3. We're not afraid of d5 because of e5. We're not afraid of anything else because bishop c4, any d5, we oppose that with the bishop on b3 and with like a lot of pressure against the king on f7 and pawn on d5. That's the thing. So it's time for the next position. It's queen e8. Queen e8 just goes after the pawn on e4. It's one of the main approaches by black players, by the way. And here I have to show you a couple of games played by Šulskis. For example, he always plays knight c3. By the way, we just have to clarify something. They can't take on e4 again because you have this check. If they go king g8, you just go queen d5 and this is check. Almost made, but it's not, unfortunately, because they can cover themselves by queen and the bishop, but you basically get a knight back and you will be up a pawn. Just because of this, they can't take on e4, and they have a couple of moves. They have g6, they have knight a6 and d5. In a game where this guy opted for g6, Šulskis played bishop d3 and knight c6. Somebody said that c5 was worth of considering in that position in order to put some pressure upon the central pawns of white. Okay, I'm fine with that, but white has a decent compensation. This guy played knight c6, bishop e3, and went with king g7. After king g7, castles, knight b4, and played h3. This is what happened in a game of Vučković, if you remember. He also played kind of these moves. So you just want to prevent like knight g4, where he's going to chase away your dark square bishop, especially considering the fact that the king stands on the dark squares, and you might need that piece as additional piece for the attack afterwards. After queen d3, rook g8, Šulskis immediately decided to break in the center and play d5. I like it. So after d takes, knight d7, jump with the knight on d5, threatened on c7. This guy played knight c5, played queen c3, for the first time doing some x-rays against the king on c7, but also g7, also this knight on c5. After knight e6, we all know that the knight is the best blocking piece, but he forgot about this winning strike with knight takes c7. After queen d7, problem is he can't take because look at this tremendous checkmate in the center of the board by this queen on c3. I really enjoy this mating picture. Really looks beautiful. So that's why this guy played queen d7. Šulskis captured an a8, and the rest was just a matter of his technique. Oh, sorry. Actually, this wasn't Šulskis' game. This was also the game of Grandmaster Vučković, a great friend of mine. One of the best Serbian players. So, once again, beautiful game. Once again, you see that his approach in all these games was never to hurry before he completes his development. Other guys, for example, who goes with knight f7, they know it's a gambit and they immediately want to kill black. No, it doesn't seem to work that way. So Vučković in this game played bishop e3, castles, knight b4, and h3. Keep this in mind that you don't always want to rush, and you just have to show some patience, complete development, and kill them on the king side. Very nice game. Vučković Govedarica played in Belgrade like 20 years ago. That's what happened against g6. So similar approach, like if they play fifth move g6. If they play knight a6, this is the game by Šulskis against Nurkiewicz, international master. Bishop c4, bishop e6, and now he decided to take this knight. Very weird gambit. So you just gave up knight for 2 pawns. Okay, weak king, and here you give up the bishop pair, actually both of your bishops, what are like possibly the best pieces for the attack, just to create like a weak pawn structure. Went with castles, g6, f4, queen c6, d5, check, king h1, bishop g4, played queen d3, bishop e3, and eventually go with this b4 break. Somehow, this just shows that dynamics in this position can be way more important than any material. So that's why I told you, if you like tactics, go for this line with lots of pleasure. Queen b4, rook ab1, queen a5, and played f5. Not just imprisoning this bishop on g4, but also opening the king on f7 and knight on f6. G takes h5, h3, bishop h5, rook b7, and played another beautiful move, e5. Probably everything would be fine about Black's game until unless this guy went for e5. What a remarkable move, fantastic tactics, and decides the game immediately. After rook b7, queen f5, king g8, another fantastic tactical shot, and Black resigns. This was a beautiful game. I really find this game like, okay, maybe not everybody would play knight a6 against you, but I guarantee that most of players wouldn't even consider bishop a6 as a possibility. Beautiful game, and just shows you how like a healthy pawn structure and this strong pawn center can decide a game way better than, you know, like keeping like all kinds of healthy and, let's just say, elementary and basic chess things, such as development and things like this. Anyways, after queen e8, knight c3, the last thing that happened in the game was d5. Actually, this is the last game that I chose for you in this system. After d5, e5, bishop b4, looks like they're about to complete development. They just need 2 more moves. Rook f8, and after rook f8, king g8, they're done. If they manage to do this, you're gonna be lost. Bishop d3, and now we have to check 2 games of Shulsky's. Both played against GMs, Frolianov and Liva. So look at this one. This guy played knight e4. He played castle. Once again, he sacrifices and goes with rook b1. Just like you see, he likes to sacrifice a lot. He likes to play. I really enjoy his chess, and this is the real spirit for this opening. After knight c6, bishop b5, king g8, rook b3, a6, bishop a4, b5, captured on c3, and once again, in order to double these pawns, gave up his light square bishop. Played rook c5, f4. To play f5, I guess on f5 he wouldn't hesitate to sack this piece and to go with some craziness like this, because they lack development. But after bishop f5, played c4, played d5, played d6, and completely played like one absolutely unexpected and crazy game. Now threatens to take this bishop on f5 by rook. The guy played queen g6, played queen d4, bishop d3, and played rook to e1. Position is way better for white, because no one can stop rook e7, followed by rook c7. G7 square is weak. We can even support that with the bishop e2. In the game was h6, rook e7, queen f6, played bishop e2, took by bishop, and after this, use this winning combination. You can't go here because this is checkmate. The guy played just h5, played d7. He was about to promote, captured, and played bishop f6. Simply, you gotta be seriously strong at tactics to play like this. But okay, that's exactly what we stated in the beginning of this lecture. So, beautiful game by Shulsky's here, played like this. But if instead of knight e4, which happened in previous game, if they play c5, looks like they're about to break our center. Castles. Furlyanov, good Russian GM, took on d4, and looks like he's just broken the center. E takes f6, d takes c3, check. Has to play g6, check. Has to play queen e6, and plays queen b5. Threatens the bishop, and threatens bishop c4 to win the queen. After queen d6, defending both, bishop c4, you can play king f8 because of another nice mating pattern. Look at this mighty bishops that mates this king. So after bishop e6, after in this game bishop c4, bishop e6 captured, played rook e1, played bishop g5, and after rook a to d1, black resigned. So just like you see, if you go under the fire of white's enormous attack, you can easily end up as a guy who is going to maybe be a sacrifice of one of the most beautiful games played by white pieces in this opening. So watch out. It's always like a reasonable risk for black players when they play against the Cochrane Gambit. And just because I showed you all these variations and I showed you queen e8, let's take a look at one of the main moves before we go to c5 and bishop e7, g6. Here I chose a game by Vitolinch, famous Latvian GM, who used to sacrifice a lot and play all these weird systems. After knight c3, king g7, once again knight c3, king g7, for example, probably Vučković approach would be bishop d3, but he likes to play bishop d3 with c3 and knight d2. Maybe even bishop d3 here would be fine, but the problem is, what if knight c6, bishop e3, knight g4? That's why this guy played bishop e2, d5, played e5, captured an e4 and played castles. Normal position. Keep in mind that we already have like 2 pawns for the piece. This one looks like in our, like out of nowhere, it just ended up in our camp. So we just have to somehow pick it up. Or play f3 and open up f file and kill the king. That's exactly what happened in the game. Knight c6, bishop e3 and h5. Played f3, e takes, rook takes, and played bishop e6. After c4, bishop g4, played rook f4. Why rook f4? To defend the d4 pawn. This guy captured and played king h7, probably hoping for bishop h6. d5, queen e8, d takes e6, queen e5, queen f2, threatens check, threatens bishop d4, also rook e1. This guy played rook d8, c takes b7, c5. I'm just going a little bit faster because all these moves were kind of mostly forced. Played queen g5, and after bishop d4, this guy couldn't defend easily what happened in the game. So this promoted a queen, and after rook takes b8, queen a7, winning this rook back. A beautiful game played in Riga, Tal's place, and this a city where he was born. So this is like a really, really nice game against g6. So once again, I just showed you, and I want to show you that instead of king g7, they can play bishop g7. It happened in a strong game between two 2600 GMs, played in Championship of Georgia. This guy played bishop c4. That's usually an idea when you have this knight c3 early. Bishop e6, and we can say that this position could be for recommendation for black players even if you're up a piece. And for king f7, e5, rook e8, and castles. Gilashvili against Bernatsky had a very nice initiative. Eventually they drew the game, but white was the one who was better. And just like I'm telling you, like I told you previously, you can use this system in your games, because just like you see, there's like a lot of resources for white for the attack, for initiative, and black just has to know their stuff really a lot in order to come up with even decent position. c5. Porchnoi recommended c5 with a hope that after d takes c5, he can go with d5 and to take over an initiative for black. But the thing is, After c5, we don't want to play like this. We want to play Schulke's approach with the bishop c4. I like this one. They can play bishop e6. I mean, they should play bishop e6, but they can also play d5. E takes, bishop takes d6, castles. And this is very interesting. For example, after e takes d4, queen takes d4, and bishop f5. I would be under impression that even though I have like 3 pawns for the piece, they're about to like complete their development, and with the active game of these pieces to get like very, very strong control of the dark squares, and to pretty much shut off all our potential attacking ideas. But the thing is, here there is a key move. It's bishop f4. One guy said in some analysis of some game, rook e8, knight c3, bishop f5, and black is great. I disagree. Once again, this beautiful bishop f4. Because it's not that we want to exchange pieces, because it's certainly not one of our main ideas, especially considering the fact that we're down a piece. But we just want to remove this blocking piece and controller of the dark squares. Same thing happened in a Schulke's game after bishop f5, bishop f4, rook e8, knight c3. Defense and overprotected both d5 pawn and e4 square, so they cannot go with rook e4. After a6, rook a to e1. This is a nice move because, and it's coped with a penetration over the e6. So definitely we gotta do something with this blockade in order to destroy this bishop on d6 and blockade of the d5 pawn. In the game was rook e1, rook e1, queen c7. Schulke's captured and played rook e5, trying to remove this knight. Funny thing was that in case of g6, he has to go with rook e6. And when they take, you have to make, and don't forget, you're down a clear rook. Okay, not clear, you have 3 pawns, but you don't even have an open back rank. Believe it or not, you're completely winning with white pieces after this move, because they can't stop knight e5, they can't stop defending this, and they're immediately about to resign. That's why I told you, you have to be really fantastic for attractive and this kind of like chess that is based on initiative, because otherwise you won't be able to play such a calm move being down a rook and to say, okay, I'm gonna kill you now. It's quite difficult. In the game was rook e5. This guy played bishop c2, rook e6. We all know that the worst blocking piece in chess is the queen. It's about to move. Queen moved on d8. You just unbroke and this blockade, and you just open up the bishop on c4, played knight e5, and after knight c6, Schulke's played queen f4. All his pieces were more or less based on attack on the f6. The guy played bishop g6, captured on f6, played queen h6, and after king g8, came up with this double check, which turned out to be checkmate. This was the game played in Warsaw 2005 against Thomas Michalczuk, famous German coach. So we've seen like so many games, like so many examples. It's about to check what I assess to be the main variation. To be honest, when I prepared myself against this variation with the black pieces, I was preparing myself to go with c5, and I never took this game this move bishop c4 into serious consideration. At that time, in previous game, we saw d5, and I just told you that on d5 we just take, and we just got like the third pawn, and all you have to remember, just once they take on d4, you just have to play bishop f4. But the thing is, I remember when I prepared myself, I prepared for bishop e6. Then I realized about this game, bishop e6, king e6, knight c3, c takes, queen takes, knight c6, queen c4, king d7, bishop f4. I'm just going a little bit faster with all these moves because this is a nice way to run an initiative here. And after like castles, rook e8, king b1, king c8. Just like you see, unlike in all previous examples where black went for the artificial castle on the king side, they did it here on the queen side. After bishop d6, rook d6, this was Shulsky's game. He had like 3 pawns for the piece, and his opponent, Grandmaster Ritsagov from Estonia, played queen e5. He took on c6, played rook d1, and on knight e4 took on c6 and opted for perpetual check like this. There is like a lot of room for improvement in this game. Take a look at home, and I think that White can play lots of better, have some interesting resources to go with the attack. And finally, if they go with the bishop e7. If they go with bishop e7, just like I told you in the beginning of this lecture, they just want a complete development with rook f8, king g8, or rook e8, king g8. If they do that, it's going to be too late for us to do anything. We play knight c3 again, and they go c6. It's aimed against bishop c4. After bishop d3, rook e8. And it looks fine. I found one game played in Russia, in St. Petersburg. So in the game was queen a5. This guy played castles, played f4, and after queen h5, of course, we're never supposed to exchange queens here because we're down a piece. King g8, and played f5, and used a well-known maneuver, knight e2, knight f4, and won this game in a very nice tactical style because the guy played queen h6, queen e2. Turned out that this guy couldn't take because of bishop c4, this and knight g6 check where the queen has just fallen. Something similar happened in the game. Played bishop d6, g3, d takes bishop c4, and after knight g6, he was about to resign this game. Salenikov against Gutov. But you know what? In case of queen a5, castles, f4, queen d2, avoiding to trade these queens off, I believe that way better move is e5. e5 because you just want to launch an attack on the king's side by unleashing these strong pawns in the center, and I believe this is why we have to consider that white is so much better in this game. And for the end of the lecture, I'm going to show that on knight c3, c6, bishop d3, this guy played rook e8, which I find the most logical thing, right? Castles, king g8. Well, I've been talking about like this. So it looks like you sacked the piece, he solidified his position, you didn't reach anything, but it's not like that. h3, move that we saw in the game played by Vuchkovic, to stop both knight g4 or bishop g4, but mainly knight g4 in case we want to go with bishop e3. But we also want to do something else. We want to push f4. And after like knight a6, he wants to kill our bishop with knight b4. Kill it with a3. Rare example where a3 and h3 cope well together, and basically they limit both of these knights to jump on these squares. After g6, f4, bishop f8, played f5, g takes, and played bishop g5. Reminds me of some Grand Prix attack ideas. So after bishop g7, king h1, placing the king in a safety, just not to blunder some desperado check on the diagonal, a7, g1. And after like knight c7, played queen f3. Funny thing is that they couldn't take because of knight takes e4, and the knight on f6 was about to fall. The guy played queen d7, rook a8 to e1, and Grandmaster Shanava beat Majdalishvili 11 years ago in Georgia. Whole things considered, I really enjoyed this lecture. I believe that this is going to give you a great, insights into this opening, and that is actually going to help you in terms of getting better understanding of these variations and how you really have to play it. I found a couple of videos about this Cochrane Gambit over the web. I wasn't quite satisfied, and I believe that including those all these games by GMs, including even some correspondence games, plus some engine analysis, should be of great help for you. Especially, I would like to thank for a special donation to George. Thank you so much. We appreciate that, and things are getting to, you know, like are heating up finally, and we're just coming up with better and better content. Thank you so much for that, and stay with us. Bye bye.